Today, I want to speak to you about my recent reflections about my experience at Social Media Week Lima. More than anything, I'm sharing with you in this episode the evolution of my thoughts as it relates to attending live events. I'll specifically be sharing the evolution of my thoughts related to hallway conversations, sitting in the front row and being fully present for other people's presentations, the deepening of peer relationships, and the kind of rooms that I think allow the most transformation to happen. This past week, I spent a few days in Lima, Ohio. It was my second time attending Social Media Week Lima. This is a conference that has been going on now for 13 years. I have a podcast that is my only interview format podcast called What Are You Creating over at whatareyoukreating.net. And if you wanted to hear the backstory of this event in Lima, Ohio, I have an interview with its founder, which I'm currently scrolling through. Thought I would have it by now. There it is, episode 26. And I'll try to remember to put a link to this interview with Jessica Suter, Social Media Week Lima. She talks about where she got the idea for creating this event and why it is so important for her to host it in her hometown. Now, when I attended my very first time and sat in on some of the sessions, I realized that this content was clearly valuable for the audience that it was designed to serve. These folks were local businesses, marketers, agency owners, or team members where they were there to learn and take notes and apply what they were hearing so that they could do social media marketing for their brand more effectively. Now, for me personally, though, I went to this event because I was seeking something different. I went with my normal conference approach, which is to seek out those hallway conversations, to deepen the relationships with people I may have met previously at the event in prior years, or to establish new meaningful connections with people who I might resonate with. Now, just in case you are not going to click through the link in the show notes to episode 26 and hear why the conference was created, I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. Basically, Jessica Suter and myself go way back. We have both been speaking at Social Media Marketing World for more than a decade. When Jessica went out to San Diego to have this experience with all of these other social media marketing agency owners, and she saw the number of big corporate entities that were sending their social media marketing directors to this conference, she was just blown away by the amount of information that was exchanged, the amount of wisdom and experience that was shared from the stage. And she knew, as an agency owner herself, she has her own marketing agency called Now Marketing. She wanted to make sure that people in her hometown, the businesses, the small businesses, the local businesses, the businesses that don't have the budgets to send somebody all the way across the country to California for several days to experience what she has experienced. And she thought, I'll create my own in my own hometown for my local community. And I will take the relationships that I've built with these other speakers, and she is a deep relationship person. I will tell you, Jessica Suter has a gift of connecting with others, and she attracts wonderful people, which is why Since she started this conference 13 years ago, I've heard nothing but amazing things about it. As an avid conference goer, it almost made the list several times. I was on the sales page, almost purchased a ticket, simply because I knew so many people within my own personal network who were raving about their experiences. Now, these were folks who are also speakers at Social Media Marketing World, whereas they were all speakers that I knew tangentially. They were industry peer adjacent. Let me explain. You see, Social Media Marketing World is an event that has always had this more corporate feel to it. It has these agencies, these big, huge companies that have big marketing departments and social media marketing departments. And they would send their employees, their directors of marketing, to this event to learn the latest trends in social media marketing. Now, I'm an online business owner. I'm an entrepreneur. I even further identify as a solopreneur and a content creator, and one who uses social media to build relationships. But still today, I don't necessarily identify in my identity. Like when I think about who is Cliff Ravenscraft, I don't think of myself as a social media marketer. That's not how I see myself. I've always seen myself as a prolific content creator. I have always considered myself to be an online educator, a coach, a mentor, a guide for people who are interested in putting their voice out into the world, creating content, and especially when it comes to audio content via podcasting. I also have a great passion for online business and solopreneurship, those sorts of things. There were several years of Social Media Marketing World where they actually had what was called a content creator track. And this is from the earliest years of Social Media Marketing World. They had many thousands of people that came out to this event. And there was an entire, I think there were like 3 different tracks, or maybe even 4 different tracks. But I was in the content creator, or in that track where the YouTubes were, the social media, like Instagram content creation, the podcast, and the blogging. All of that was this one track. And then there was the social media marketers track. And then there were other whatever tracks. As a result of that, I'm in relationship. I'm in the speaker dinner or the speaker party with all of these other industry peers who are adjacent to the one that I identify with and resonate most as the content creator, as the creator track. Eventually, Social Media Marketing World decided to pare back the number of tracks that it offered, and it no longer had a content creator track separate from social media marketing. Now, they still had some sessions related to podcasting and YouTube and other content creating outlets, but it fell then under the social media marketing track, or whatever the main track of the event is. As a result of my relationship with Michael Stelzner, who owns Social Media Examiner, which operates the Social Media Marketing World Conference, I had the privilege of being invited each year, most years to speak, but it's certainly each year to attend and continue these ongoing deepening relationships with these industry adjacent peers. This is where I'm going with this. So the further out that I get into the lineage of the year-to-year experience of going to Social Media Marketing World, I'm noticing that there are less and less of the industry peers that I most identified with there every year. We're talking about all of the YouTube influencers, all of the blogging influencers, and all of the podcasting influencers. That was my sphere. Blogging, podcasting, YouTube. Those people, those speakers that I would see every year, the group of us who were from the content creator, there were fewer and fewer and fewer of us on the stages at Social Media Marketing World because that track had been incorporated and folded into the broader social media marketing. As a result of that, I'm not seeing all of these podcasters and bloggers and YouTubers on stages at the speaker party with me. And so as a result of that, I'm actually networking even more with these social media marketing agency owners who are speaking on the stage more and more. So when I'm faced with this idea of going to Social Media Week Lima, where there are, out of all of the speakers who are going to speak on the stage, more than half of them are, and I'm using air quotes, acquaintances. These are people that I know of. They know of me. I know of them. We've been in the same rooms and spoke on the same stages before, a lot. And so I've always been drawn to go there for that, not for the information contained on how to be more successful in your social media marketing campaigns for your brand. Although I do see the value of perceiving my solopreneur business as a brand, and there are a lot of things that are said on these stages that would be relevant to me. Yet at the same time, when I go to conferences, I've never really gone to conferences so that I can learn things. I've gone there to network with other people who are living life at my level, which means the business owner, the person who is responsible for creating their own content, for putting their own message out into the world. And so the people I most want to interact with at a conference are the speakers themselves. And depending on the conference, if there is a focus on the attendees being solopreneurs, business owners, entrepreneurs, then I like to go to events where I can mingle in the hallways and or over lunch or dinner with those people who are like me, a business owner, somebody who is operating in life at the level of taking on all of the risk for themselves of where their financial well-being is provided for. So there's a whole series of decisions that are faced as a business owner that really doesn't get fully understood by someone who hasn't operated their own business for several years and gone through some of the things that we business owners go through. And there's a lot to be said for being in the room with these other folks. So Social Media Week Lima is only 2.5 hours from my hometown here in Northern Kentucky. I live just across the river from Cincinnati, Ohio. Given the fact that this conference is only 2.5 hours away, I've been tempted to just say, you know what, it's so close, why don't I just go? Last year, I went to Social Media Week Lima for the very first time. It is a full 2-day event, and I looked at the list of speakers. Obviously, I knew that Jessica Suter was the person who created it, so I knew she would be there. And I looked at the list of speakers, and as a result of Jessica Suter inviting me to a pre-party for Social Media Marketing World last year, 2025, I got to meet several of the people who have been speaking on these stages for social media marketing that I had not previously really gotten to know. Because again, I was in my own little silo with those that were directly related to the kind of stuff that I'm doing in the world. And so being in Jessica's pre-event gathering that she facilitated, I'm hanging out with all of these people that are part of her inner circle community, her fellow speakers who are like her. She owns a social media marketing agency, and I met all these other people who have social media marketing agencies and also adjacent types of businesses for brands that would hire. The synergy among them is what I'm talking about. They had a lot of synergy. So I go there and I meet these people. For me, it's like I'm meeting them for the very first time at Social Media Marketing World in the pre-event party hosted by Jessica Suter. And as a result of that, I realized, wow, I just started some pretty fascinating relationships. I started following up with them afterwards. And several of them says, Cliff, where are you from? And I said Cincinnati, and they said, oh, well, you're not too far from Lima. Are we going to see you at Social Media Week Lima? And that's what got me to push over the edge and go to Social Media Week Lima in 2025. Not last week, but I'm talking about last year. And I went last year, and I had a fantastic time connecting with the fellow speakers that I knew. Now, I did sit in the back of the room in the attendee. And the one thing is that Social Media Week Lima is a single stage event. I think it's important to say, I'm going to explain to you my own model of the world when it comes to how I think about conferences and where I find value. In all the conferences I've ever attended, unless it was a Tony Robbins event, I don't sit in on sessions to take notes and learn things. I can get all that stuff from the people that I know, and I can watch their YouTubes, I can listen to their podcast, I can download the recordings of their talks later. I'm at these events to build face-to-face relationship with people. So I go to Social Media Week Lima, and I notice that there's nobody in the hallway. Practically everyone at this event, including the speakers, are sitting in the room watching all of the speakers. But that's not why I attended that event in Lima, Ohio. I attended to go and deepen even further the relationships with these speakers that I connected with at Social Media Marketing World just a few months earlier in 2025. Well, about halfway through the first day, I asked Jessica, I said, hey, do you mind if I hang out in the speaker room? She goes, Cliff, absolutely. Go right ahead. I'm like, awesome. And that's when it kicked off. It's like all of a sudden I'm sitting in the chairs back in the speaker room, hanging out, having these conversations with speakers. And that was like, oh, this feels so good. This feels like, okay, this was worth my time and investment of everything to get here and do this thing. And then there was the VIP party, and that was an incredible relational experience. And then the next day, I had a little bit more of the speaker room conversations. And then I think I pretty much left about just after lunch the second day. I think I'm like, okay, I feel as though I've had as much opportunity to network with these speakers as I think I'm going to get from this event. I really feel good about the relationships that went deeper. I did meet one or two new speakers that I feel like I would still call them an acquaintance. But wow, that was a good experience. And so I drove home early last year, before the conference ended. Now, this year, I was going to go again, and I thought it was going to be very much like last year. One of the things that I decided to do this year is that I looked at the speaker list, and I saw that the same speakers that were there last year, most of them were there this year. There were a few that I saw last year for the very first time, and I'm like, oh, wow, I'll get to see them again, and maybe that relationship will go a little bit deeper. Who knows? Maybe, just maybe, I will walk away with some business owner relationships. Maybe there'll be some business owners who are attracted to this particular event, and I will be on the lookout for that. I'll keep my radar, scanning the room for who here might be a business owner. So I could just have some other new relationships with people who are a lot like me as a business owner. So anyway, I go to Social Media Week Lima again this year. And once again, it seems like everybody is attending all of the sessions. There were 3 speakers that I would say I have developed even deeper relationships with, and I decided to sit at the front table right in front of the stage with these other speakers that I've come to know. And I figure I'll sit there and give my full presence during this first day of the event. And I thought throughout the entire event this would happen. And I would sit there in the front row and give them my full presence. Each speaker. Now, thankfully, the first day, most everyone who spoke on the first day were somebody that I know. There were only 2 or 3 speakers that first day that were new to me. I got to learn a lot about who they are, some of their stories by some of the stories that were woven into their talks. And I'm like, oh, wow, this was great. And then some of those other speakers who I've known, but yet I've never seen them speak before, I got to see them do their craft. And it got me to thinking about the number of times when I speak and I look out and see in the front row and I'll see a Dan Miller there or a Michael Hyatt or a John Lee Dumas or a Pat Flynn or a Michael Stelzner. It's just the number of times when I look out into the sea of the audience that I'm speaking to see these familiar faces of like my peers sitting there, giving me their full attention and their presence. That's always made an impact. I've always recognized those people in the room. I'm like, oh my gosh, that I'm so honored that so-and-so is right there in the audience, looking at me doing my thing on this stage. And I know that there's nothing that I'm saying from this stage that they don't already have as far as takeaways are concerned. But I do understand there is something unique that is happening on a stage that is an energetic exchange, that it goes far beyond the information that is shared. And that's a whole different layer of understanding the value of being in a live speaking environment. And it doesn't happen in a powerful way with every speaker, but that's a whole separate topic for another time. What I'm getting at is I went to Social Media Week Lima with my experience of 2025 in my mind to help tamper down the expectation of hallway conversation opportunities that would be there. So because of my experiences at Social Media Week Lima 2025, I went into Social Media Week Lima 2026 with this idea that I'm pretty much going to sit and watch all of these talks, see these speakers speak, and I will only be able to really truly engage with somebody over a 15-minute networking thing here or in the breakfast time before the first session starts, or maybe over lunch at the VIP party, maybe in the hotel lobby at night. And that's going to be the only experience of hallway conversations. And it's not technically hallway conversations at that point. And I was okay with it. It was good to know that going in what to quote unquote expect. And so I sat in on all those sessions for the first day. And I do appreciate the fact that I was able to do for those speakers on that day what so many of my peers have done for me, which is to show up and be of support to that speaker, to give that attention, to bring that presence. And I do not underestimate the value of that. In fact, many of those speakers came to me that day or the next day and say, hey, Cliff, I really appreciated the fact that you were right there cheering me on. Man, it was so cool to see you. Thank you so much for sitting in on my talk. And trust me, I understand. I don't take that compliment lightly. I truly understand that appreciation. So at one point, I'm actually asking myself, wow, have I been missing out on this benefit of being at a conference? How many conferences have I attended over the past 20 years? The answer is a lot. And how many times have I sat down in front of the stage of some of my peers? Well, if it's a Michael Hyatt, a Dan Miller, a Pat Flynn, a John Lee Dumas, an Amy Porterfield, the people who I'm in very, very close relationship with, I will go and sit on their sessions. Ray Edwards, I will go and sit in their sessions, front row, and give them my attention. But there are so many other speakers that I'm acquaintances with that I've never done that for until this time. And it definitely, from my side even, deepened the relationship because I had a greater respect for their craft of public communication. I already had a deep respect for their expertise as an industry peer, and I already knew of their ability and in their craft of creating social media, and some of them creating content, whether it be podcast, YouTube, or whatever form of content they're creating. I already understood and respected their craft for that. But public speaking on a stage is a different art form. It is a different craft. And I got to experience it. And I'm like, wow, this was really powerful. And again, I was asking myself, have I been missing out by not attending more of these speakers' sessions? Have I been missing out on an opportunity to get to witness the craft of these other speakers that I've met at the speaker party at all of these other events by not sitting in on their sessions and instead sitting out in the hallway? And so part of me was thinking, should I consider making this a part of my conference strategy moving forward? This was what was going through my mind as we go into lunch for day one of the 2-day event last week at Social Media Week Lima. I'm like, maybe this will be a part of my conference strategy. And then all of a sudden, I get a tap on the shoulder. This guy says, Cliff, oh my gosh, I didn't know you were going to be here. And I looked and I'm like, Vincent, I didn't know you were going to be here. And it was Vincent Puglisi. Now, Vincent Puglisi is somebody that I have known for many years. Still, I would say even though we go back nearly 17 years, I would still call it an emerging relationship. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. So one of the first years that Pat Flynn and I were both speaking at Social Media Marketing World, we hosted a joint meetup together in the Gaslamp District in San Diego at a pizza place. Lots of people attended that meetup that we hosted. And Vincent Puglisi was one of them. In fact, I have a photo of Vincent and I together at that event. But I also met a lot of other people at that event. And while I do remember meeting Vincent, I don't recall the actual conversation we had there at that event. It was one of those situations where I had met maybe 100, 150 people throughout the evening, and then that was followed by meeting hundreds of more people over the next several days. And so my relationship with Vincent Puglisi was that I recognize his name, I would recognize his photo, but I couldn't really tell you a lot about him. But over the years, people would talk about Vincent Puglisi, people in my community, people who are my peers, and it was always incredibly respectful. Wonderful things said about Vincent. And then I would hear people who say, I'm a part of Vincent Puglisi's mastermind. You know Vincent, don't you? I was like, well, I do know Vincent. We've met before. But I didn't want to go any further than that to say, like, Vincent and I go way back. We're like really close friends. No, we had been acquaintances. Now, he had something going on where he was hosting an event, and all of us, a mastermind group event, and several people there had stood up and talked about things that they had heard me shares, like the influence that I had on them. And so Vincent reached out to me and he says, Cliff, I've been hearing a lot about you lately and a lot of great things. In fact, several folks who were at my community gave a lot of praise for some of the coaching that you've done with them. It sounds to me like you've moved beyond podcasting and you're doing something, unique in the world. I'd love to learn more about that. And so when I was on my retreat, my personal retreat in 2025, January of last year, I got on a Zoom call with Vincent Puglisi, and it was the first time he and I connected on a personal level. Now, it was a very deep and meaningful conversation. I felt like, wow, there's something here. This is something. But it was kind of like I would say an emerging relationship. And Vincent and I have had a couple of exchanges via direct messages here and there, maybe a couple of audio notes passed back and forth via Facebook Messenger or whatever. So we're beyond acquaintance. We're in, I would say, emerging relationship territory. And funny enough, about 2 weeks before I went to Social Media Week Lima, I get a message from Vincent and he says, hey, Cliff, I'd love to catch up with you sometime. If you ever got time for a call, let me know. And I said, hey, I really appreciate it. Just want you to know I'm in the midst of a lot of travel, lots of conferences right now. Would it be okay with you if I get in touch with you, let's just say in about a week and a half from now? And he's like, Cliff, here's my cell phone number. Call me anytime. Don't need to worry about a calendar whatsoever. He's like, Cliff, just whenever is good for you, man. Whenever, you just call me whenever. And I'm like, okay. And so I put a note on there to follow up with Vincent this week. I'm recording this on Monday, June 22nd, 2026. So it was shocking to me to see Vincent Puglisi at this event. And the reason why is because I would not consider Vincent Puglisi to be a social media marketing agency guy. That he is somebody who has been an entrepreneur, business owner, has had his own professional photography business. He's done lots of great things with real estate investing, and he has facilitated some amazing events and masterminds for entrepreneurs, solopreneurs even. And that's what I know him for. And so he and I have a lot in common. And one of the things that we have in common is that Social Media Week Lima wouldn't necessarily be at the top of our list of conferences that we go to unless maybe we were somehow, for some reason, speaking there. And except for the only reason why a Cliff Ravenscraft or a Vincent Puglisi might go to Social Media Week Lima is simply for the opportunity to go and network with other speakers that are speaking on the stage that are peers of ours, industry peers. I knew that's why I was there, but I'm wondering, why is Vincent here? Did he come here to do that? And the answer became blindingly obvious. Yes, he came to Social Media Week Lima this year for the same reason I came last year, hoping to network with those speakers, have hallway conversations. And I don't think it would be too much for me to say that he contacted his wife at the end of the first day and says, hey, guess what? Cliff's here. Now, he was shocked to see that I was here because I hadn't really promoted that I was going to be here. And also, I'm not listed as a speaker. I wasn't speaking at the event. And so Vincent's calling back to us. So first of all, Cliff's here. And you're not going to believe this. Nobody's in the hallways. This is exactly the conversation I had with Stephanie last year. I said, Stephanie, you're not going to believe this. This was last year. There's nobody in the hallways. I'm sitting here in the hallway. I am by myself. Nobody. All of the speakers, they're in the room, sitting there. Everybody. oh my gosh, did I make a mistake coming here? And Stephanie's like, Cliff, just, stake it out, just be in between sessions, just go in and talk with people. And I did. And thankfully it all worked out. It's worked out so much. It went so well last year that I came back a second year. But anyway, so imagine this. Now Vincent's having the same conversation with his wife that I was having with mine the year before. She goes, even Cliff Ravenscraft sitting in the front row, just like glued to the speakers on the stage. And so later he's like, what's going on here? And I said, well, I came here for the same reason you probably did, and to have the hallway conversations. And I just recognized, if you can't beat them, join them. And so he's like, dude, you want to hang out in the VIP room? And I'm like, yeah, let's go. And so the two of us just went back there and started to chat. And occasionally somebody would come in and they would hear us having a conversation. They would join for a little bit. And we start to have conversations as industry peers sharing with one another. Then we had the VIP dinner that night, so the VIP party. And so we went, and the VIP party's at this bowling alley entertainment center. It's got axe throwing, it's got virtual golfing, it's got all of the stuff, all of the entertainment. And it's a really cool place. But we have this dinner room where we're having dinner. What I loved about it is because Vincent and I have very much the same affinity for meaningful conversation with peers. We never went bowling. We never went and did karaoke. We never went and did all of the arcade and axe throwing and all the other stuff. Instead, we found ourselves this table and we had deep, meaningful conversation with our peers. And some people would come and go, but throughout the entire evening, this is where we congregated. We had this. And then on day 2 of the event, Vincent and I decided that we would just meet each other in the VIP room and we would just hang there for the day, and people could come and join us if they want to, and they did. And then Vincent and I invited a couple other people to join us, and we went out to lunch together, came back, did more of our networking. And I said, hey, Vincent, I just want you to know, I am actually going to sit in on Ryan Corral's talk and Alicia Barr. These are two speakers that I have been friends with, and I've never seen each of them speak. And so they're the last 2 speakers of the day. And I said, I'm going to go and sit in on their talks. I'm going to sit up in the front row. And so, but man, the conversations that we had in that room are just phenomenal. It was amazing. I went and caught the end of Ryan Corral's talk, sat in Alicia Barr's talk. And then afterwards, we all went to this Mexican restaurant, and the conversations there just continued for hours. It was incredible. There were a couple of things that really stood out to me. One, I can understand why most everyone that was there was there. And what I mean by that, I can understand why every single speaker who traveled from whatever distances they needed to travel to go to Lima, Ohio, I could understand why they were there. Number one, they had the opportunity to get up on stage and share their expertise, their experience, and chances are there might even be the opportunity to gain some business from people who are in the audience. And maybe not even only those who are in the audience, but the people who might be reached from where this content is marketed to even post-event. Not to mention the fact that, the relationship that they have with Jessica and the other industry peers. They're a very inner circle network of speakers, because they all, like I mentioned before, the inner circle that I had was the content creators. They are all the social media marketers. They all resonate with each other around that shared ecosystem, if you will. So I can understand why they would go there. But here's something about Lima, Ohio, as far as my understanding of it. And that is, it's not an easy place to get to. If you do not live in Lima, Ohio, and you want to attend this event in Lima, Ohio, and you're going to fly, you're not going to fly to Lima, Ohio. You're going to fly to Columbus and drive more than an hour. Or you're going to fly to Fort Wayne, Indiana, and drive for more than an hour. Or you're going to fly to Cincinnati, Ohio, and drive 2.5 hours. It is a journey to get there. And what really stood out to me is that Vincent Puglisi lives in Sarasota, Florida. And he flew to Cincinnati. And I happen to know there is no direct flight from Sarasota, Florida to Cincinnati, Ohio. You have to I fly out of the Cincinnati airport all the time. I know the places you can go to direct, and Sarasota is not one of them. I just want you to imagine Vincent Puglisi, for him to go to this event, not as a speaker, but only for these hallway conversations, only to get through most of the half of the first day and make that same call to his wife that I made a year earlier to mine. Keep all of this in mind. I want you to think he got up very early in the morning, probably around 4 or 5 o'clock, got to this Sarasota or whatever the closest airport is over there, and then flew into, let's just say, Charlotte, North Carolina, or someplace like that, or Atlanta, Georgia. And then he got on a connecting flight to Cincinnati, Ohio. And he got into the Cincinnati CVG airport, and he went to the rent-a-car facility, and he rented himself a car, and then drove another 2.5 hours to go to this event. That speaks to the level of dedication of what it took for Vincent to be there. And that's why when I saw him, when I say I was shocked to see him, I was literally shocked. Now, he was shocked to see me, but the thing is that I did not nearly have the same level of investment that he did. I only drove 2.5 hours. I didn't have 2 flights there and back on top of the 2.5 hour drive. And so, but man, was it amazing. And what am I left with after all of this? I'm left with a deeper appreciation for the value of sitting in and being fully present with my industry peers who I respect immensely, and getting to see them do their craft from the stage. Also, I mentioned that this year I met 1 or 2 speakers that I've never met before. Seeing their talk and hearing some of their stories from the stage immediately brought forth deeper resonance. And when I actually talked with those speakers at the VIP party later, following the first day, the relationship went so much deeper because I had an awareness of their world, their environment, their craft, their stories, their background, their area of expertise. I'm like, wow, what is the best strategy now moving forward as I go to conferences? Should I just go and sit in on all these talks of speakers that are peers of mine and give them the value of my presence and get to learn a little bit more about them and how their craft is shifting and changing and evolving over time? What new stories will they bring in that may be tangentially relevant to just deepening that relationship? And man, there's so much value. And then what happened in that back room the entire second day, that can't be duplicated in any other way than missing out on all of those talks to have these meaningful conversations. I am so torn. I think that there are so many solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, business owners who are seeking these kind of conversations. It's the reason why somebody will go through such lengths to attend a conference where maybe the actual conference itself, the topics aren't the obvious fit for you personally, but you're drawn there because of the amazing speakers and industry peers, even if they're industry adjacent. There's just something about being in a room who understands what it's like to be on that business journey, that solopreneur journey, that entrepreneurial journey. Kind of reminds me just how valuable it is, the work that I've been doing over the last 15 years now, facilitating paid mastermind groups for entrepreneurs, giving people an opportunity on a weekly basis to jump on a call and have a safe place where you can tell the truth about what you're experiencing in your business, to share some ideas, bounce ideas off of one another, to get some creative feedback, to hear some wisdom from people who have maybe accomplished some things that you're looking to accomplish, and to get some feedback from somebody who can help you make a decision that their advice coming to you, or at least their perspective, is coming from someone who has faced that decision before. There's something to be said about doing life with other people who are like you. Anyway, one of the things that has come to my mind is the importance of these mastermind environments. I came away with just an understanding that moving forward, I don't know how I'm going to handle my conferences between the value of being fully present and sitting there in the front row watching a talk from one of my peers, and or escaping into the hallway to have meaningful conversations with somebody I haven't yet met, but have the opportunity face to face right there in physical presence with someone to go into a really deep, meaningful conversation. And I think I'm going to take that on a case-by-case basis. There's going to be some times when sitting there and being fully present is the right decision, and then sometimes holding back from going into a session and going up and introducing myself to someone in the hallway as those opportunities present themselves. I'm just going to trust that I will know what to do in the moment and follow that intuition. And certainly one of the big takeaways for me from this experience was just at what lengths people will go through to be in a room with their peers. And I get it. I've been facilitating paid mastermind groups, and I see the value of bringing people together in an environment where they can speak the truth about what they're facing in their life and in their business, the decisions that they're facing, to get perspective and feedback from somebody who has faced those decisions themselves, to brainstorm ideas, to get clarity on next steps, to commit to sustained, consistent action and momentum forward. That, it reinvigorated me just how much these rooms are oxygen to the business owner. And if you don't have a room like that, I invite you to head over to cliffravenscraft.com/momentum and check out the details of the newest paid mastermind group experience that I have put together. It's called Next Level Mastermind Momentum. Again, over at cliffravenscraft.com/momentum. Link will be in the show notes. Until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.